out of our database, and we provide reporting and analysis. One of the emerging things that we use is called an energy management dashboard, and this is where key performance indicators are tracked and presented in real time through a web browser. The ultimate goal of all this is to actually provide a tool for building operators to lower their energy costs through having a highly detailed view of what's going on inside their building and adjusting their behaviors and the behaviors of building occupants to use less energy. Now our solution has several features to it. I'm just going to point out a couple here. This is what a dashboard, an energy management dashboard looks like. We call it our executive view. And the idea here is basically it demonstrates an overall view of the plants at what rate different energy sources are being consumed at. This is all happening in real time. And it conveys weather information and other performance data on that screen. One of the things we talked about, or I mentioned earlier, is we also have to change behaviors. So another view that we have is what we call our public view. This is a way to translate technical information into a format that non-technical users will hopefully relate to and that resonates with them. Because what you're trying to do is reinforce positive behaviors. So when you make a change in a building that actually helps you save energy, you want to let people understand how you did it and how to continue to reinforce that positive behavior that we have in there. And the last thing I want to talk about in this section, many of you may be familiar with a term called smart grid. And essentially what smart grid is all about is layering an information and communications technology network over top of a traditional utility grid. Essentially what you do is you end up with a vastly improved communication layer that allows for a high degree of interconnectedness of billions of end-user devices. And that can be networked, it's all just using internet protocol technology. And in addition to billions of end-user devices, things that use energy, you can have millions of actual energy sources feeding into that grid. So the degree of complexity that adds is enormous. It's basically like my world, it's like kind of creating another energy internet. And it's a tremendous challenge to figure out how to use that information in the most positive way you can, not only just to operate the system, but to actually minimize energy consumption. So these are just some examples at the end user end of what you could see. And most of this technology exists today. We have smart end user devices. So basically, pretty well every device that uses electricity in your home will be able to interconnect with the internet. You can have renewable energy, wind power or solar at your residence feeding into the grid, which is something that is quite rare today. You have advanced metering, so you would actually pay less for off-peak hours when the utility can generate it at a lower cost than during a high-demand period. You have to have an operations center to tie all this together. Plug-in hybrids, someday we may be able to see those actually feed back into the grid at peak hours and have you get paid for letting your car supply some energy to the grid. So that's just a really quick snapshot of some of the tremendous opportunities that information technology plays in trying to solve our global energy challenge. So I wanted to end tonight with what I feel are the top 5 things we need in New Brunswick to tackle the global energy challenge from our place in the world. Look, New Brunswick's energy consumption, we're less than the rounding error out of 45 billion barrels of oil equivalent per year. But we have a tremendous opportunity by leveraging internet technology to influence far beyond what we consider. Some of these items I feel quite passionate about. Some of you may agree with me, and it's okay if you disagree. And some of these items are from people whose opinion I deeply respect. So my top 5 list is a bit of an amalgamation of all of those. Okay, number 5. Business needs to be engaged in helping solve social challenges. I'll admit that really doesn't have anything to do with solving our global energy challenge directly. And I included this on the list because if you or your company is going to be truly successful building a business in New Brunswick, you will need to have your business engaged in helping solve some of the social sector challenges we face right here at home in the communities we live and work in. These are things like systemic poverty, childhood illiteracy, adult illiteracy, drug and alcohol addiction, the list goes on. And despite all good intentions, government is not going to solve all those problems by itself. Not only is there not enough funding available, the business sector has a role to play here, and companies and individuals can make a significant difference. And in the end, helping to solve our social sector challenges really creates a virtuous circle. By improving educational results, we heard about that tonight, we create more talent for our companies. By reducing poverty and unemployment, we add more value to our economy, we lower our government expenditures, lower our taxes, and so on. But the most important reason why I want to urge our rising stars tonight for getting involved as an organization and an individual is this: you will change lives. Number 4, don't get comfortable. One of my favorite business books of all time is by Jim Collins, and it's called Good to Great. And he starts his book with this line: good is the enemy of great. So here's a Richard Jones quote for you to take away. It's basically, comfort is the enemy of fulfillment. Now let me explain what I mean by comfortable. As soon as you achieve a certain proficiency in a job, you get comfortable. If you don't challenge yourself to move on, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you don't stay stagnant, you move backwards, because the rest of the world, not just the 5.9 billion people who are trying to move into a standard of living that we enjoy, but 800 million people already have it. Everybody is moving ahead. So when you get comfortable and you stop growing, you're basically going backwards. It happens a lot. We get comfortable with a certain income stream, and we don't want to give that up, even though we think there may be more challenging opportunities someplace else. And I guess I urge you to don't get comfortable and stop growing, and don't be scared to take risks, because that's where great achievements happen, and that's where great success happens. So remember, comfort is the enemy of fulfillment. Number 3, recognize entrepreneurship as a legitimate career. I actually didn't know that the Shad Valley was going to be featured as prominently as it was, so a lot of my topics in here I think have already been stated. Well, I have a number of professional designations, as many of you do. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. I'm a certified management consultant. I've worked in a variety of roles as engineer, manager, consultant, and all of those are generally recognized as being legitimate careers. And I spent most of a good deal of my working career in large companies, and even some of them were pretty entrepreneurial in the early stages of the development. And I left that and really went with a bootstrapping startup company in June of 2009. And there's quite a few other people in this room who have done the same thing, and hopefully they would all agree with me that being an entrepreneur is absolutely as challenging and is just as legitimate a career choice as being an engineer or a manager or a consultant. Just like everyone is not wired to be an engineer, not everyone is wired to be an entrepreneur. But I feel we need to give full recognition that entrepreneurship is a legitimate professional career choice. It's not something that you do as a last resort. It should be treated with equal respect and interest by the business community at large, and recognized for the power that entrepreneurs have to create value. And people early in their professional career should be encouraged to examine entrepreneurship as offering a viable career path. And again, the Shad Valley program certainly emphasizes that. I'm a huge fan of Guy Kawasaki. Hopefully most of you will know who he is. If you don't, he wrote a book about 5 years ago called The Art of the Start, and I highly recommend, if you're on entrepreneurship, that you read that. We actually used it at Shift Energy to help develop our investor presentations, our sales presentations, even our business plan followed the format that he suggested. So number 2 belongs to Guy Kawasaki, and this is make meaning. Under no circumstances should you ever start a business because you think you will make a lot of money. If money is your motivation, you will never attract the kind of talent you need to be wildly successful in the long run. But if you start your business because you want to make a difference in the world, if you want to make meaning, as Guy Kawasaki would call it, then your passion, commitment, and vision will have people beating down the door to come and work for you. Number 2, make meaning. Now for my number 1 item that I think that we need here in New Brunswick to be able to tackle our global energy challenge is to develop great leaders in entrepreneurship. In New Brunswick, we're perceived to be deficient in many areas that are deemed critical to entrepreneurial activity. Commonly we hear of a lack of access to capital, lack of local venture capital firms and their expertise and that can operate on a global scale, lack of enough talent, enough computer science and engineering grads, lack of a large potential client base, and so on and so on. My view on all of that is what we lack most in New Brunswick are people with great leadership skills who are getting involved in entrepreneurship. We lack entrepreneurial leaders who can take ideas such as those that exist in helping us change our energy appetite and turning those ideas into solid opportunities and turn those opportunities into solid growing companies. And to compensate for this, I strongly believe that we as a business community must make the necessary investment in time, money, and mentorship to grow and develop the people already in New Brunswick integrated leaders. And I challenge any of you rising stars here tonight in this IT sector to start thinking about entrepreneurship as a logical, viable, and motivating career choice. It's not for everyone, but I believe many of you here tonight have leadership skills that can be turned loose in an entrepreneurial company or even in a large company in an entrepreneurial way that can result not only in a great company, but also in a very fulfilling career choice. So I want to direct my closing remarks again to our rising stars. And I guess I want to leave this with you. I want you to get inspired by tackling a great challenge. Now, I want to use that top 5 list that I provided here and apply it to things you're passionate about. The challenges I've talked about tonight, the one I'm involved with, is that of helping solve our global energy issues. And this industry is trillions of dollars a year, and it's going to get bigger, and it's going to actually grow in importance because it's probably one of the most significant things that we have to face on a global basis. But perhaps our global energy challenge is something you're not that passionate about. That's okay. Use that top 5 list and apply it to something you are passionate about. The folks that work with me at Shift Energy, I know I'm very fond of saving quotations that I come up with, and the one I'm going to share with you as I close here tonight is one that the team at Shift Energy's heard occasionally over the past year. It's actually over 100 years old. It was written in the early part of the 20th century by then U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt. So I want to leave this with you. He writes, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, because there is not effort without error and shortcomings, but who actually does strive to do the deed, who knows the great enthusiasm, the great devotion, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, he at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat." Thank you.